The Children of Men by P.D. James, a perhaps somewhat atypical apocalyptic novel, and also the basis, however loosely, for a pretty acclaimed film as well. So I'm really not overly familiar with P.D. James or her work. This is the only thing that I've read by her, although I do know that she was primarily an author of crime fiction, and that this book, The Children of Men, constitutes possibly like her one foray outside of that genre. But what a foray it was, because The Children of Men is one hell of a quality product, I have to say, having read it. So, what is the story of The Children of Men? Well, it takes place in the, at the time of the book's writing, future year of 2021, when humanity is facing extinction, but not due to the usual apocalyptic causes such as nuclear war or some kind of pandemic. No, in this apocalyptic scenario, humanity is facing extinction due to inexplicable mass infertility. Sometime in the 1990s, for unknown reasons, the entire human race became infertile. Male sperm is no longer viable, and the last generation to be born is referred to as the Omega generation. And after them, no human babies have been born. And so what remains is an aging and perpetually dwindling population with seemingly no hope for a future. Our main character in the book is one Theo Farron, who is an Oxford professor who just so happens to be the cousin to the Warden of England, because England in this book is now governed by a dictator figure known as the Warden. His name is Zan Lipiat, and he is, as I said, cousin to the main character Theo. And one day, Theo is approached by a woman representing a group who call themselves the Five Fishes, and they want him to consult with his cousin, the Warden, to try to persuade him to enact some societal reforms. And he meets with him. He's like, "Nah, I'm not doing it. Just, I'm not about that. It's not going to happen." So then Theo relates back that it was basically kind of just a dead end. And then he goes on about his life. But later he is contacted by the Five Fishes again, and he is informed that, shockingly, miraculously, one of their number, a woman named Julian, is actually pregnant. That's right. She is apparently the first human woman to be pregnant in like over 20 years. And so they want to get her out of the reach of the Warden, because they know that he'll just use the baby for political power and, other kind of nefarious stuff. So they try to escape his reach. They try to elude his grasp. Some of them, actually most of them, end up dying along the way. Theo finds himself being romantically drawn to this woman. There is some romantic intrigue here as well. Some kind of romantic friction regarding the paternity of the as yet unborn miracle child. Eventually, they hole up in a shed in the woods, where Julian gives birth to this miracle child who is apparently the hope of humanity. Zan, the Warden, shows up, but Theo smokes his ass, and then, I guess, apparently, perhaps, may be assuming the post of Warden himself. And then the book ends with seemingly a new hope for the human race in the form of this miraculous baby. And that's the book. That is the tale of The Children of Men. So let's talk about the technical qualities of it. And like, when I said that this was a quality product, I meant that this was a quality product, because this book is truly the work of a master craftswoman, I would say. So let's start with the writing. The writing in this book is roundly fantastic. This is a powerfully written book. The prose is quite elegant. It is very well worded. It has some really great lines in this as well. There's nothing to complain about for me anyway when it comes to the writing of this book. I think it is a phenomenally well written book with real consummate skill in its execution. Just a greatly written book. So on to the characters. So Theo is the main character, and I have to say, starting out, I found him kind of not a terribly likable character. He is something of a cold fish. We get portions of this book told through the form of his diary. It switches between first person narration in a kind of epistolary format in the form of Theo's diary entries, and then traditional, like, third person omniscient narration. But we are given kind of some history on Theo, and he seemingly is, again, something of a cold fish. He was in a marriage which fell apart after he ran over their child and killed their child accidentally, and he is rather apathetic about the whole thing. He once more, he is a pretty cold fish. He doesn't seem to emotionally connect with a lot. He seems very removed, very kind of like distant emotionally, and it kind of makes him hard to connect with at the beginning. And there's also kind of, I think, some symbolism there with he had a child whom he killed, albeit unintentionally, but now he kind of has this second chance to do right by like delivering and protecting this miracle baby. But he also kind of he becomes more passionate, I guess, as the book goes on, because he is romantically drawn to Julian, the woman who is carrying this child. And like, this is a man who we understand has really never felt like true love before this. He kind of just went through the motions, but now he is truly like locked in. He is engaged, and he ultimately kind of becomes a more lively character as the book goes on, I think. But the way that his character is depicted, I think, is it's pretty deft. Really, he feels human, not always likable, but he does definitely feel human. And the secondary characters also have some depth as well. Julian, the woman who is pregnant, she there was a kind of a twist regarding her as the book went on, where you kind of think she is like this really pious figure. She's pretty religious, and she's kind of a social crusader because she's wanting Theo to, get his cousin, the warden, to, reform society in certain ways. But then later on, we find that there's, again, kind of some intrigue regarding the paternity of this child, and that she isn't quite so spotless. She's kind of a naughty girl, perhaps in some ways. But I kind of like that. This book has definitely like heavily religious themes in it, and it kind of inverted the the kind of like Virgin Mary trope, because like, in the Bible, right, Mary was carrying like the miracle child who was going to be like the hope of humankind, and this miracle child is also going to be the hope of humanity in this world where humanity is dying. But this child is not being carried by a pious and saintly matron. No, she's definitely kind of got some dirt on her character wise. And I kind of like that. It kind of inverted things a little bit. But I do think the characters overall were pretty well done. So again, it's not getting any complaints in that area. So now let's talk about the like actual story. I found this book very engaging, and I also found it a very rich book as well, kind of thematically. The book really does present a world that's just kind of lost all hope, and society has broken down in a lot of ways, both because there are no younger people to perform certain vital functions, and so things are kind of coming apart at the seams. But also there's just like, like total apathy on the part of a lot of people, because there's no hope for, human continuance. But also, the world building in this is pretty well done as well. And we see how people cope with the fact that there are no more babies or children, and how, like, some women use like dolls, like lifelike dolls, to kind of, use as an ersatz child to, invest their maternal instincts in. And also, they use like pets, like cats and dogs, as, again, ersatz children. And there's kind of like elaborate rituals and regulations pertaining to this. But the book, as I said, has some like serious religious influences in it. I don't know that I would call this like a Christian novel. It's kind of a little bit too edgy, I think, to fit that bill nicely, but it definitely has some like Christian elements to it. And again, it's never really explained in the book why humanity just went, or just became infertile, or why like male sperm is no longer viable, because it's not just like living men. It's like even like sperm in like sperm banks, like that's like frozen, it's like no longer viable. So it's pretty apparent that something supernatural happened. And it's, I think you can read into it that this is meant to be like some kind of divine judgment, that this is definitely something from a higher power, perhaps. And we don't know why it stops. We don't know why, this one woman is now carrying the first child in decades, the hope of humanity. But it makes for a pretty compelling narrative. It really does. And I was really invested in it. I think it's very well plotted. It's not a long book, but it moves nicely, but it never too quickly. It feels very well done on a plot level. And I have to say, it really sucked me in, and I thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed this book. So to rate The Children of Men, I think I'm going to give this an A plus. Honestly, there's really nothing that I have to complain about this book. I found it very gripping. It's, again, it pulled me in. The characters were, human and interesting, and the prose was actually quite remarkable at times. I think it is, once more, a very quality product. And this is like literature. Like, I would say this is some like capital L literature. You could say this is like almost like a modern classic. Like, it is really a very commendable and admirable book. It's quite, again, it is a quality work. And again, I really loved it. Honestly, I have not much to complain about with it. So yeah, it's going to get an A plus from me. Now, as regards the film adaptation of this, because I feel like this is probably how most people will be familiar with this book, is the film that is very loosely based on it. I honestly don't know that I've actually seen all of that film. I do remember watching some of it, but it was like years and years and years ago. It was like, it had to be, I mean, it was a long, long time ago. I don't remember much about it. I remember the chase scene, definitely. That I think is probably the most memorable thing about that film. That really nerve-wracking chase scene, and the cinematography as well. I think that is the main like draw when it comes to that film, is it's very innovative and like immersive cinematography. But of what I remember of the film, and again, I don't even know if I've seen the entire thing, it's been so long, but of what I remember of it, it's virtually nothing like this book. This book is not an action thriller like the film is. The film is very action oriented. This book is not. Also, the film is kind of a road movie in a way. And while there is like a road trip in this book, it doesn't really come into play until like towards the end. And so they were definitely very loose with the adaptation of this. But, of what I remember, it was a pretty good looking film, and it's pretty highly acclaimed. But I would have to say, I think this book would probably edge it out for me. I think it would probably be better, because I would say that the book is much more thoughtful and ponderous than the film is, of what I remember watching. Again, it seemed like a very action oriented kind of movie, whereas this book is much more reflective in tone. But anyway, so yeah, The Children of Men, I'm going to give it an A plus. I thought this was just a fantastic book. I'm very glad I read it. So yes, The Children of Men by P.D. James. Have you read this book? If you have, let me know down in the comments what you thought about it, whether you have agreed or disagreed with anything I've said about it here today. And if you haven't read The Children of Men, I could highly recommend this. This is a crackerjack book, honestly. Just a great book, a great read, I think. So if you're into, again, apocalyptic fiction and a work of that genre that kind of takes an unusual approach to it, I think that there's a lot to recommend with Children of Men. So yeah, this would be highly recommended from me. And as always, if you have enjoyed anything you've seen or heard here today, remember to hit that like button and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And until next time, peace.